Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm a somatic teacher and therapist. And today I would like to invite you to feel like a child or even like a toddler and to tap into that natural playfulness you might have inside of you. So it's not at all about getting technical or doing something in a particular way. It's really trying to feel your body from inside out and find the joy in moving yourself around. And in this case, will be all the time very close to the ground. And you might find it best to be either directly on the ground, or if you find it too hard or too cold, you could also use a blanket. So you can begin by making your way down. And just like always invite you, that first contact with the ground is not like lying stiff and not moving, but rather listening to what your body is telling you, the subtle cues that I'm not sure if I want to place my foot here or maybe there, or I don't really want to be still yet. So maybe there's a little bit of rocking involved. Perhaps you feel like yawning or stretching, so don't suppress it. If that's what you want to do now, stretch and yawn and even make it loud. Why not? And you could start kind of moving your limbs in space, um, feeling that you're as if you're underwater. So everything is really fluid and effortless. Whatever you're gonna do today on the mat, think of doing it with as little effort as possible. So maybe even every time you're starting to make a movement, you can ask yourself, is there any way I can do it with 50% less effort? Can my body become really floppy? And there might be some images that might work for you, and that would evoke this kind of silkiness or liquid nature or maybe floppiness of that body. And maybe you really want to feel the body. So you already feel it from underneath you because of the contact with the ground, and that little bit of rocking or rolling helps you to get more sensations. But you could also get in touch with those parts of the body you haven't touched yet, and maybe which you don't even touch that often. So you might touch your toes or your foot, the sole of the foot. You might touch, and maybe you can experiment with various kinds of touch. So it might be something like a little bit of a squeezy, slidey movement. It might be a little bit of a tap. It could be even something harder. And maybe you will notice that your body is responding better to one kind of touch than to the other. Maybe what you're really craving for is something super, super subtle, like just stroking with the fingertips. Or maybe you really want to feel it, something like more of a squeeze or of a little hit. And maybe you can even compare one leg to the other, the one that you actually touched and the one that you haven't yet. And what is the difference? How do they feel? So you could do it on one side and on the other, any way you wish. And if you want to add some movements to that as you explore through the touch, why not? You could combine the two, the movement with the touch. You could touch your belly, maybe give it a little stroke, the rib cage, the sides of the rib cage. You could even rest the hands there for long enough to feel how the hands move together with the breath. You could also give yourself a hug, either squeezing or sliding your hands from the shoulders, down the arms, all the way to the wrists, and to the palms themselves. You could rub one hand against the other. So many ways you could use the touch. You could also touch your hair, your scalp, your face, in again super gentle way, or maybe making some circles there. So no rules, but feel that you have touched the entire body, so that it might help you to feel more connected. And then you could just pause for a moment to notice how it is now. That's contact between your body and the floor, how you're resting, your body weight on the ground, maybe sensations in the front of the body, which doesn't have that direct feedback from the floor now in this position. But as it was touched, there might be some tingly sensations or change in temperature, whatever it might be. You know, it's open mind and pure curiosity, as if you're a child that is kind of discovering how to make its way through the world and how to use its body to do it with the least effort. And whenever you'll be ready for that, you can start making the movements. That would be more sideways. And this could be starting from lower body, so somewhere from your hips or legs or feet. It could be starting from the upper body, if that one is kind of easier and more accessible for you, or both. But again, whatever you do, the pace is dictated by you. And it's, think of it like you want to maintain a smile throughout these movements. And a kind of 50% or maybe even 20% of effort that you would normally put into it. So let your body start flippingly, floppingly rolling from side to side. Really, you could think of something like seaweed moving in the ocean, or some other image that works for you where some movement comes completely effortless. So eventually this will move into kind of rolling, side to side rolling, but with little effort. And maybe you can start exploring how does the other limbs could add to that, how they could help or change that movement, how you could reach through one of the limbs or maybe push away with the other. And keep on checking if there is that feeling that you're trying to do something, or if it's really super, super soft and comfortable. And keep it comfortable. It could be much slower, it could be faster, it's up to you. It's your body, it's your practice. I'm just giving you a bunch of suggestions. And after you've explored that for some time, you could move your, so let's go for something a little bit more directed. You can move your one knee out and then bring it in so that your whole foot steps on the ground. And then you can do it again. Move that knee out and let that foot drop on the ground. And then the next time you let your knee fall, and it really doesn't matter, you're not trying to reach with the knee to the ground, you let it fall wherever it wants to fall. You can slide that foot away from you. And then you can bring that knee in towards you. And don't worry if the blanket is all rolling underneath already. The sliding movement will be much easier if you're on the blanket or directly on the hard surface floor. You could do this one a couple of times. And if you really want to play, you could try feeling that movement more from the hip, or more from the knee, or more from the heel. Every time you do this movement, it actually could initiate from a different place and it might feel different as well. Or you might not think about how you do it at all and just bring that leg closer towards the midline and back. And then you could do similar thing with your arm, reaching with on the same side, reaching with the arm over the head without tensing up, just reaching kind of comfortably, and then bringing that elbow closer towards the midline. And maybe you notice that the moment you do it, there's a little bit of a squeeze on that one side of the body and a little bit more opening on the other side. You could keep that other knee bent and the foot on the mat. It might be more comfortable for your lower back. You could also check how it would be if you have that other leg straight. Up to you. And then eventually you could join these two movements of the leg coming in towards the arm and the arm coming in towards the leg on one side. So you're kind of becoming really shorter on one side and longer on the other side. You could add the breath to that if you wish. For example, inhaling when you make yourself long and exhaling when you make yourself short. And you could go on with that if it feels comfortable, if it feels tiring, have a rest, your practice. And then you could play with that other leg. So up to you if you keep the leg that you just worked on bent or straight, and that other leg would move out. The knee would move out to the side, and then the foot lands back on the mat. So on the floor. So the knee out, and the knee back to the ceiling. Again, you could play with the breath or not, up to you. Then one time your knee is out, you could move that leg, slide it on the ground until the leg is straight, and then you can bend that knee again to bring that knee closer towards the midline. So it's the movement of the leg sliding with the outer edge of the foot on the ground. And it's going to feel different if you initiate it from the heel, different if you initiate it from the knee, different if you initiate it from the hip. But you don't really want to worry about it at this point. Make it as effortless as possible. And then there is the arm. You could do the arm first a couple of times, moving the arm over the head and then bringing the elbow closer in a few times. So if that feels quite unfamiliar, you can always make many more repetitions until it feels that the sliding is effortless and it feels quite natural, and you don't really need to put too much mental effort into making this movement either. And then you could go for combining the two, bringing this elbow and knee towards each other. So one side of the body shortens and then moving them away. And the moment one side of the body shortens, the other one lengthens. There is no other way around it. It happens automatically, naturally. You could add the breath to that, for example, inhaling when everything is long and exhaling when everything is short. It's sliding, so just sliding. And maybe later you want to stretch a yawn. And then I'm gonna roll over to the front. And again, there are a couple of ways you can do it. You might lead with the leg, which crosses over the midline of the body, and that leg will lead the hip and the torso, and that's how you would land. It might be your preferred way of getting into it. Or you might prefer to lead with the arm crossing the midline, arm reaching, then the shoulder, the torso, the hip, and eventually you're on the front. And perhaps you're leading with the knee, which is bent. The bent knee crosses the midline of the body, and that's how you land. So plenty of possibilities here. Just the one that you want, or play with it a couple of times in and out. You can always pause this video and keep on playing. But eventually you're gonna land on the front. And as you're on the front, again, there's this feeling that you have all the contact with the front of the body and the ground underneath, which means you can rest more through all those points of contact down to the earth. Maybe you feel the breath every time you inhale, and your belly or your chest presses into the ground, and every time as you exhale. And again, if you need more sensations, the movement adds the sensations. So it might be something like rocking your pelvis to the right and to the left, and allowing your legs to roll right and left together with the pelvis. Maybe even that movement could travel higher up, somewhere to the belly and to the chest. You could also let your limbs float in the air, just like we did when you were on the back. So here it might be lower legs swimming in space. And as the lower legs make this irregular shapes in the air, you might feel lots of sensations around the front of the thighs, front of the pelvis, the belly, of course, in the legs themselves. Okay. And then we're gonna come back to this movement of the limbs. So you could rest one cheek on the ground and then bring the knee, the elbow towards your waistline, and then slide that arm away from you. So again, the more slidey is the surface, the easier this movement will be. And you might make this movement more from the shoulder, or more from your elbow, or more from your hand. Or you might not need to worry about this at all at this stage. Let's make it as effortless as possible. Can it be more effortless? And after you've done that a couple of times with the arm, you might try to do a similar thing with your leg. So that requires a little bit of a roll of the pelvis to one side so that it frees that leg to bring that knee closer towards the waistline. And then you slide that leg away until the leg is straight. So it's sliding the leg is exactly the same movement as we did lying on the back. Knee moves out and it comes closer towards the midline, and then it slides away. And there might be moments where you feel something gets stuck. Maybe you need to smoothen it out a bit. And at some point, you could add the arm and the leg so there's more space on one side, and then that space shortens. That's the way it works. So lengthening and shortening. It could be synchronized with the breath or not. And after you've done it a couple of times on one side, you could give it a little break. Perhaps notice the difference in the sensations in the right and left side of the torso before you move on to the other side. So give yourself a good couple of breaths to notice, observe. And then you could change the cheek and begin with the arm, the hand sliding away, and then the elbow coming in closer. Again, you might play with where do you start? With the hand, with the elbow, or with the shoulder. Also notice that you're not pressing, it's sliding. It's only sliding. If you press into the ground, it's gonna feel like way more effort. And after you've done that a couple of times with the elbow, and you start bringing that elbow more towards the waistline. So the moment you start bringing the elbow towards the waistline, you see that actually, now it's probably going to be more visible, the torso is moving and one side becomes longer and one side becomes shorter. Yeah? Okay. So then you could give a rest to the arms. And maybe it will require a tiny bit of a shift of the hips to the other side so that it frees that knee to slide in towards the waistline, and then you can slide that knee away from the waistline. So knee sliding towards the waistline and sliding away. Perhaps there's a way to smoothen out this movement. Maybe there is a way to start it from the foot or from the feet. Maybe one of these is requires less effort than the other. And after some time, you could add the arm as well. So it's one side of the body shortening and then lengthening. Okay. And then you can give it a break again, give it some rest for a moment. And if you really want to have some fun, you could start combining these movements to create a crow. Shortening one side and lengthening the other, sliding on that blanket you have. I'm out of vision. I might turn around just to right here. So you might be pushing away with the hand and with that knee which is bent. You might try to do it with the straight leg as well to give you a little bit more of this sliding sensation. So it's just feeling that you're like some huge lizard and you're kind of finding your way through space using this sideways motion. And if that is quite exhausting, rest again on the front, give yourself time to feel. And it's very probable after that you might feel like rolling onto your back, rest in different shape, having your lower back closer to the ground. Maybe you feel like bending the knees and from this position, rolling a little bit from side to side. Maybe your legs want to move somehow in space. Maybe you want to wrap your pelvis against the floor. And your whole back body. And then again, give yourself time to rest in one of the shapes. Maybe the position with the knees bent and feet on the mat will be uh, more restful for you. Maybe you prefer the legs long. Perhaps you want to again get in touch with some part of the body by resting your hands there, whether it's gonna be on the chest or on the belly or on the pelvis and anywhere else. Give yourself a moment in stillness, observing how alive you feel, how much connected with every part of the body. Every part of the body feels with one another. How does it feel from inside out? How does it feel to not to try too hard, just to do something that is out of the usual, but without trying to achieve something, but do it for the fun of it, for the fun of it. And you might add a little bit of a rock when you come back. And yeah, you can come back to this practice anytime and make it yours. You could do more rolling, you could do more massage beats, you could do more of that kind of crawly movement. Anything that makes you feel like, wow, it's been quite nice to feel my body moving in so many different ways. So I hope that you enjoyed this session, and I try to post a new video every Monday. I also invite you to sign up for my newsletter with kindness, where I talk a lot about that kind of embodied practices where you can build up your nervous system resilience, where you can work through overwhelming emotions, anxiety, fear mostly, but also other issues such as chronic pain. So if you're interested, you can find the link in the description below. Thank you.